Let's do it. You ready?
Yeah.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Seth and I's webinar. Introducing my good buddy, Bassmaster Elite Pro, Seth Feider.
What up?
Myself, I'm Josh Douglas. It's been a little while since we've done a webinar, kind of a lot of things going on, end of season. What we have not yet had a webinar since Seth got his big win on Mille Lacs. So me first to, well, not the first to congratulate you, but
bud.
Definitely an awesome showing down there. So please bring your questions, whatever you got for him. Good opportunity to ask him. He definitely made Minnesota proud on our own turf. And we are going to get rocking. This one's all about translating sonar. We're going to try to watch questions as we're going. We're just going to throw screenshots at you, and we're going to talk about what we're seeing. If you got questions, try to throw them in. We'll try to see. Otherwise, we'll try to refer back to them at the end, of course. Let's get through some of the – okay, what do I do again?
Can you run the screen?
There we go. All right. Of course, use the chat feature to enjoy conversations among the attendants. Seth and I can't really watch the chat feature. We don't see it too easy. But the Q&A feature, if you got a question for us, throw it on there. Otherwise, definitely, we love questions, so bring in the questions.
If you don't ask questions, you don't win prizes. So
Is it like that?
oh yeah, it's like that.
All right. You gotta be here live. You gotta ask questions. We got some pretty sweet prizes for this one. Computer users here, this is how you ask a question. Pretty self-explanatory. Smartphone users, everybody's a little bit different on the iPhone. You just got to kind of find where the questions are, but make sure you're using the Q&A function. Congratulations to Roger Olson, won himself one heck of a cooler from Engel Coolers at the last webinar we had. To my understanding, Bree Rogers got his cooler. Happy? Great. Everybody's got it. Roger, thank you for coming on. Of course, everyone wins prizes when they log on to our webinars. We try to make sure we're bringing some good stuff. This time, we got an awesome Featherwick. Seth and I and our guest Lyle are all members of Featherwick. And Featherwick was awesome. It came through with the Tackle Warehouse $300 gift card. And I am guessing there's not a single soul on this webinar that couldn't use the $300 Tackle Warehouse gift card. We think
I could use it.
Yeah, I think we all.
Thanks, Featherwick.
Featherwick is awesome. Rapala putting together an awesome little prize package, getting it shipped out to another lucky winner. Again, we'll pick some names out of the live attendance, and should we make it? We'll make it since it's already anyone who's on live can automatically win that Tack Warehouse one. You have to ask a question to win the Rapala one. That's your rule. You brought Rapala to the table, right?
That's fair.
All right, man. I want to introduce my special guest. Lyle Held is in the house right now. Let's see if I can move this without.
How you doing, everybody?
We made it.
Awesome, we're there. All right, guys. Lyle's from Minnesota. He's over here, though, in this neck of the woods. Does a lot of smallmouth fishing with his boy Casey. Bass Brawl Outdoors. These are awesome, and they definitely helped us come up with some images and stuff, some pretty cool stuff they've been doing to go chase down some bass. We're going to get into a lot of that different stuff here coming up. All right, some of the stuff we're going to cover on all these different screenshots. Obviously, mapping is hugely important. Navionics puts these webinars on for us all. We're going to get into some of that. Traditional sonars on your right-hand side of the screen. We're going to talk about structure scanner side imaging, down scan. We're not here to sell units. We're just here to teach fishermen how to fish. So we're going to be showing you screenshots from Seth runs Humminbird, Lyle Humminbird, and I run Lowrance. So we're going to be showing you different stuff from what we got. Down scan, down imaging, and of course 360 or spotlight scan. Pretty cool stuff coming up through that. All right, first screenshot. Seth, what do you see here?
Looks like a bass on top of a boulder to me.
I'm guessing. I'm pretty sure you won a pretty big tournament targeting smallies in that fashion. Big boulders. You can see here, this is just a simple, I marked the spot on my Lowrance on that boulder, pull back on, and they're always around those. That's a PAL 13, shows them hard bottom spots. Awesome on Lowrance. I'm sure Humminbird has a version somewhat similar to that, showing hard bottom. And there you can see, that's one of them hanging out right on top of that boulder. Here we got a couple of them. It's like a split boulder, a couple bass in between. I'm pretty sure this mouse works if I remember right. I'm thinking there's 3 of them here. There's one there, and maybe one there.
Yeah.
It looks like there's another one there to me. Everything's going on right here, though. I don't know what that is. Big waves. This is right here, a structure scan and down scan. Again, you can see a smallmouth on a boulder, but you can tell I was in pretty big waves that day by the way my image is shaking when I'm trying to crawl over the top of it, going up and down. They look like, what, about 4-footers to you?
Oh, hard to say.
Hard.
It's
Back of the boat, those are pretty good
wrong.
waves.
Yeah.
Those are pretty good waves. Guys, jump in on anything that you see here. This looks like a lost smallmouth to me. I don't know, he's holding down a boulder, but that ain't the best boulder on the whole spot, but looks like a pretty good sized fish.
Yep.
Definitely a dropper. You can see him on both the structure scan. See, structure scan doesn't miss anything side to side. This is the dead area. A lot of people mistake that. You can actually see where I went right over the top of this little tiny rock and split that fish right in half on the top part of the screen. Bree, can they see the mouse? Right? Am I moving? Perfect. And then here again on down scan. Hummingbird image. School of smallmouths. What do we got here, Feider?
Yep. It's a side scan image. You can see clearly a big wad of fish right here with some scattered little groups of them around as well. Those are what fish look like on your side scan. A lot of people they're seeing these images and not really know what they're looking at, but that's what a fish looks like on your side scan.
Yep. And one thing too, doing electronics training and stuff like that, if you see fish, as long as you got a bass mind and you're looking for bass, a lot of times those are bass. So you just got to have some confidence in yourself that the areas that you're fishing, looking at your Navionics map, deciding which areas you think by the structures and the contours are going to hold fish, and then going in there and using your structure scan and your side imaging and stuff like that to actually search out their home and, most importantly, search out some fish. Good little image. This is a cool shot. This is actually, I got like the second big bass at the Sam Rayburn Big Bass Splash Pro Division deal we did. I forgot my Navionics map, believe it or not. So the Navionics guy actually has an image here with no Navionics map in it, but you can see the timber, and one of these was like a 6-pounder. There's a couple of them here on the bottom, and I actually saw this on my front graph. Yeah, pretty cool image. You can see him sitting down here at the bottom. 360.
Yeah.
How do we use 360? Let's talk about 360 a little bit.
It's the deal. When you find those schools of smallmouth like that, you can just pull up to them with the trolling motor and pinpoint your cast. It's the deal. I mean, when you see a school of fish like that, you're not going to miss.
Right. And one thing that I've seen too is being a Lowrance user, I don't run 360.
Yep.
But one big advantage of having that, whether it be spotlight scan or 360, is going to be, smallmouths are notorious for following each other. And we see it sometimes all the way to the boat, but more often than not, they might, follow 20 feet. Some you don't even actually see. And then they disperse and go somewhere else. We're guessing at that point, right?
And something we see a lot, especially with the 360, you're fishing structure, and all of a sudden you see a school of fish show up on the left-hand side off the structure. And being able to pinpoint that cast to that school of fish that's moving, instead of casting on that structure, you're going to catch those fish.
Right on.
Very cool tool.
Yep.
Very cool tool.
Yep.
Definitely.
You want to start hitting some questions?
Yeah, I was just going to say that, actually.
We'll start from the bottom.
Okay.
There's like a lot of them, so it's probably pretty okay.
All right. How close to the bottom do you think the 360 will detect them? If they're if they're laying on the bottom, it's going to be hard to see them. Right.
You need fish that are active and moving around.
Yeah.
At least foot or
at least a foot. At least a foot. There's got to be some separation. If they're laying in the mud, you're not going to see them.
And especially on rocks.
Yeah,
you're definitely not going to pull them away from rocks.
Exactly.
And that goes with sonar, and that goes with they can bring in chirp, they can bring in all, but bottom line, if they are sitting belly on the rocks, it's going to be really hard. A good plug for hydrowave though, get them up and moving around a little bit.
Absolutely.
And you can start picking them up on the 360. And that's all you need. Get them just to look around a little
turn
bit.
that thing up.
If you're dealing with cruising smallmouths, man, if they're locked down on a spot, they might get tight. But if they're moving, they're going to be at least a foot off the bottom.
Yep.
What is the best boat speed for 360?
Boat speed, you can be sitting still.
You want to be sitting still, probably, don't you? Okay.
That's where this Ultrex is going to change the game.
And you're running 360 off your trolling motor?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Up to what speed can you run it and still have a good image?
We usually run one or two. Two's about the best.
Okay.
Two's about because you're gonna get a faster pan for when those fish are moving.
Yep.
To keep on them where they're going.
Maybe we should start on the other side.
Matt Magnon, that's my boy, California. Like to see you, Matt, big fish specialist, Diamond Valley. He says, what's the max range on 360?
We usually run about 55, 60 feet.
55, 60 feet is a good.
Doesn't matter how deep you are.
Doesn't matter. Well, if you
2 feet
if you
50 feet, you're on the same range.
If you're 50 feet, we'd probably add 50 feet to that.
Okay.
If you're out in 20, you probably add 50 feet to it.
Can you tell fish are moving from the 360?
Absolutely.
Okay, now you got it. So essentially,
yeah. I mean, if you see like on the image right there, if there's 3 rocks on the left hand side and you see a white line, and all of a sudden that white line moved 5 feet, it's a fish because those rocks didn't move, but that white line moved.
And if I'm not mistaken, it works similar to that of like a radar.
Yeah.
And it's going to refresh as it comes back along.
Yep.
So those fish are going to move periodically. You're going to, or you can assess how fast they're moving by how fast they move when that range comes back around.
How long for the sonar to go around?
It's usually probably about 8-10 seconds.
Oh, okay.
Because it's basically a side imaging transducer just rotating.
Yep.
So you're going to get a pan from each side, right on that line on the screen.
Can you adjust the sweep speed on 360?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
What's your preferred speed?
2.
2?
Yeah. One's just a little too slow.
Okay.
All right, here's what we're going to get off the questions for a minute because we're going to get buried, and these are awesome. You guys are coming. We'll get back to these. We'll go through the slides, stimulate a ton of questions, keep asking them as you go, and we'll come back to them and just run through them until we've all had enough. Sound good?
Yep.
All right. What do we got here? I love down scan, side scan for finding rocks in the grass. I can remember back in the day buying Dean Capper's boat and using his old Vexler trying to find some hard bottoms and some grass. And I didn't know what I was doing, that's for sure. That could have been in Chinese. I wouldn't have known what was going on. But definitely, I mean, this is an awesome tool. You can see a little bit of grass coming up about 4 or 5 feet and big boulders sitting right in that big boulder sitting right in the rock. That's a targeted spot right there.
Yeah. That's where I think down scan really shines is, stuff up off the bottom telling, whether you're in grass or brush or rock or, perfect example. If you just went over that with 2D sonar, it probably wouldn't look much different than all grass, but with the down scan, it really shows you, the rock in the grass.
And I know I got an image later that I can show you to back up exactly what Feider's saying, but let's talk about something like this. Okay, so you scan this, you find, I've always talked about a point system. I like to add in a bunch of targeted stuff equals how good that is and whether it's with my time to fish. In this case, you got a weed line, you got some weeds, you got a rock pile, and you got a big boulder. How would you target something like this?
It depends seasonal and what you're fishing for, largemouth, smallmouth. But in the north, any place you got natural grass and anywhere rock and grass meet, that's just a high percentage spot every time. Always
good. And that boulder, what do you think? You put a jig worm on that, pull one away from there maybe?
For sure.
I'm guessing so. That is, what do we got here? Let's see if you can guess. It's going to be a giant tree. It's actually a laid down tree. It's not sticking up. It's laying down. You can see the trunk right here. And if I'm not mistaken, these might be fish sitting right here, but I'm not entirely sure what's going on. But this is a giant brush pile. I lost way more jigs in this thing than fish that I caught, I promise. But at the same time, I did catch a few out of it, and it's a really nice looking tree. Big, giant brush pile laying down there. When you're fishing brush like this, I can tell you, from up north, we don't get to fish a lot of brush.
No.
We don't have a lot of brush in our water. We got a lot of weeds, rocks, stuff like that, but we don't put brush in. Down south, you learn fishing the central opens and stuff in a quick hurry. You got to know what a brush pile is and how to fish a brush pile. Yeah. What's your favorite technique for catching a lot of brush piles?
Usually either a shaky head or a drop shot, one of the two.
You find it better. People break off in brush piles a bunch. You find it better to get right over the top of that or cast towards it?
Depends on the depth will have a lot to do with it. I mean, anything shallower than 14, 15 feet, you're definitely going to want to cast to. But you get out and brush in 20, 30, 40 feet of water, you can definitely get around top of it and just fish vertical. I prefer to do that. It's easier to get the fish out of the brush.
And one good hint for people always when you're looking for brush piles, look at the bank. A lot of times you can see right where they cut the trees off at the bank. I mean, you'll see like 4 perfectly cut trees, and if you go look out 40 to 50 yards off the bank, you probably find those in a perfect line right off the contour. So that's always a good tip. If you start seeing some cut down trees close to the bank in the middle of nowhere, there's probably some brush piles out there. But with down scan, side scan, I mean, they're really easy to find. They're really not too hard to find. And with down scan in particular, you get the right image, you can actually see the fish sitting inside stuff like that too.
And 2D sonar will show that as well.
Absolutely.
But if I'm just looking for brush pile, side scan is going to be my main tool, just because I can cover so much water with
and you can really open up your ranges and get out there and see it.
Especially when you get out in that 30, 40 feet. I mean, you can look a couple 100 feet each side of the boat. So.
Oh, let me go back one. These look like beds to me.
Bluegill beds. They stand out like a sore thumb on side imaging. Well, anywhere you got bluegills, they typically spawn on full moons. I mean, basically after the bass spawn throughout all the way through the fall, you're gonna have bluegills spawning, usually on your moon cycles. But I've seen them almost every day of the year, bluegill spawning. So definitely something to look at. Everyone sees them up shallow when you're fishing the bank, inside grass line type stuff. But there's a lot of bluegills that'll bed out into 20 feet of water.
I've definitely seen them out 20 plus feet. Yeah.
On the water clarity you have in the lake, and how it's set up for depth. But that's something to keep your eyes out for. If you got a moon phase in the middle of the summer or even early fall, those bluegill beds will have big bass around them for sure.
And one thing too is anyone who fishes any kind of post spawn fishing for bass after the spawn targets generally shallow bluegill beds.
You can see them with your eyes.
When you see them with your eyes, and you can almost always catch a bass or two around him. You might not see the bass, but he's in a clump of weeds really close to there. A wacky Cinco will show him in a quick hurry. So if you can imagine, I mean, if you get out 7, 10, 15, 20 plus deep, I mean, those fish, they really don't screw around much. You throw like any bluegill imitation thing, something makes it look, and those fish will hop on that pretty quick. I mean, they're paying those bluegills back for all the horror they cause them during the spawn.
This is actually a really cool screenshot. You can actually see the bluegills on the beds in this screenshot. So there's going to be, that's an active bluegill bed. I mean, you can see those little white dots in the depressions. That's an active bluegill bed. That's for sure going to have fish around it. And
the depressions essentially are just shadows. That's what we're seeing. That's what makes all this stuff come together.
A
little bit of the crater, so all of a sudden you can see them little dark, or the white spots in the middle of those, and those are obviously those bluegill. Creek channels. Creek channels are awesome, man. That's something that I tell you what, I am getting personally better at slowly, because we just don't deal with a whole heck of a lot of creek channels up here. It's natural lake fishing.
It's more of a reservoir deal, but those are the travel routes for the fish. Anytime they're transitioning, if they're coming in shallow in the spring or going out deep in the summer, it's like a deer trail. That's what those fish are going to use. And if you can find something right along the creek channel, maybe where it makes a bend or there's some brush pile, they're going to stop on those places. But that's the trail the fish use to get in shallow and back out deep on almost every reservoir you fish.
Yeah, and I can actually, when I took this screenshot, I was at a tournament. We were fishing pad stems for pre-spawn bass that were moving in. This is on the outside. If you go to the left of the image over in this neck of the woods, it's all the pad stems. And the bigger bass would be in these trenches, but right up where they meet those lily pads. The bucks would be all through that whole thing, but the bigger ones seem to be in these little channels that carry. So they're coming in from that deeper water and using this as their road to come up and just kind of hanging in them deal. So finding those, I mean, they're everywhere. And if you look, they always look like there's fish in them. Because there is.
Yeah.
There is. It's the old river, old creek channels. That's where the bait is. That's where the fish are going to be. What do we got going on here? See some deep water and some rocks.
Yeah, just a simple bottom transition. It shows up really well on side imaging. You can see out here, looks to me like a muddier bottom. It's all depression and stuff like that. You can see right here, you got a hard edge where it turns to probably good hard sand with some scattered rocks up on top of it. Definitely high percentage areas. Anytime you're in a lake that doesn't have a ton of hard bottom, these transitions will pop out really nice on side imaging.
Yeah, and transitions, I don't care if you're a hunter, a fisherman, whatever, transitions are just so important. They use them all the time. You see it hunting edges of cornfields, edges of woods, creeks, whatever. They're just, whether you're walleye fishing, whatever, those different transition changes are just so important. And that can be from 25 feet, 40 feet to 4 feet, you know, where it goes from 4 to 6 feet. And all of a sudden they like those deals. A lot of times I think they live out on these and they move up in here when they want to eat. What do we got here? Here's another creek channel. Actually, this is some really good Navionics. This is mapping. This is Navionics for you too. If you look, this little tan or pink line or whatever it is, that represents the creek channel. If you look, my boat just came over that creek channel and Navionics had that nailed. Absolutely. This is Sam Rayburn Reservoir. You can see the type of environment that lives around these creek channels. And, you know, that's something that I'm still working on every day, is where the key spots is on those creek channels. That's going to take some time, because that's just something that you just got to learn how to find. And any input on that? Do you have any input on creek channels on how?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, they're just deer trails. You know, say it's winter, fish are out here. They're going to follow this creek channel up in here. They're going to spawn back in all these little pockets in here. But they're going to run that creek channel into here. Maybe stage on this point, or up here where it turns tight in here on that point before they move in. So these little pockets is where they're going to spawn. So, I mean, you can use these to follow the fish. And same deal in the summer. You know, they'll spawn back in here. They're going to catch that creek channel, run it out till, you know, they hit, I don't know which way the current's going on this deal, but, you know, this one looks really good. That little high spot with that current sweeping into it, that'd be a great place for him to get out in the summer.
It's perfect. Current was going that way too. Good job, bud. But yeah, same. And people even ask, you know, these would be your main lake points. You hear it all the time. Main lake points. These are going to be your secondary points right in here. Your pea gravel and stuff's usually in the backs. And these fish are going to move in. So when people are saying, you know, main lake, creek channel points, you know, this would be something like right in here. You're talking about like secondary points, like Seth just said, right here. You know, that's obviously the most predominant ones coming off of that point. It looks like this green right in here means timber. So yeah, there could be, you know, and they'll sit right on a stump in 20 feet of water. They call that home. What do we got going here? Fish cribs. This is actually, Feider and I got this image together. Can't say we actually caught a whole heck of a lot around the fish crib, but it was a good image nonetheless. A lot of white bass and stuff like that sitting on them. But you can see this is just something that was made there. Sticks, or what is a crib?
It's made out of wood. This one's kind of slappy. Usually they're pretty square. Use railroad ties a lot. It's kind of a northern thing, fish cribs. But
big Wisconsin thing.
Yeah,
a lot of Wisconsin lakes out there, I noticed. All right, this is I got off 3 stump, but we like the image. This is an image I took from an Upper New York camp when it was the Featherweight weekend, and we want to know your guys' guess on this. Why don't you put like in the questions or something, if you're referring to this sonar, you know, name that structure, put that in front of it, something we know what you're referring to. We don't exactly know entirely what is a good image. Obviously, this up here to the left, this is some rocks, and you even got some fish sitting on it. It's a pretty good spot. And then something happens in here. You know, my first instinct was these look like creek channels or channels, water channels. But when I idled over and you look at down scan, it's like it's softer bottom, and then the whites are going to be your harder bottom. A little bit of grass in here. We don't know what it is, but it's cool. We'd like to hear your opinion. You guys got anything on it? Are we still stumped?
Yeah, I thought it was perch grass, but I don't know.
And perch grass, you see some grass here, but then it doesn't go here.
Yeah, the hard
We'd like to hear you guys' input, what we think that would be. Here's some traditional sonar stuff, man. This is always fun.
I use 2D a lot.
2D is still my favorite. I like side imaging for finding them, sonar for fishing. Yeah. I mean, I'm a sonar guy all the way around. And this image, you know, people always want to know video game fish and drop on them. Here's a school smallmouth, few of them that I was working on. You know, obviously my freshest stuff comes in from the screen on this side. So here's where I started to see that these bass were on that spot. Here's my bait dropping down to them, and you can see how all of these bass react. Just straight drop right to the bottom, fall down. Doesn't mean they're going to bite it every time, but it'll make you sit there and wait for it nonetheless. But yeah, definitely a good image. Looked like some pretty good solid bass. Here we got structure scan and down scan. You know, I like down scan sometimes in smallies, especially on reefs. This is them. They were up on top the day before when I took this. Then all of a sudden I didn't get bit on there, and then I found them all out here off of that deep edge. Just a lot of times you think those deeper, they're just not as, they don't want to feed as much. They're off to the side. They're a little more chill. Weather moving them around. Wind can produce them, push them on one side because of the current.
Yeah.
Bree wanted me to put this one in. I like this image. Everybody seems to like it. This is like glacier rock. This is like Great Lakes glacier rock. You know,
That's awesome.
it's shallow. It's cool. And these smallies, believe it or not, can actually run in these little tiny trenches right in here. And they can use those. They can just sit down in them, eat crawdads, eat bait, eat whatever it is that they want. But that's classic. Some of the Great Lakes, Lake Erie style rock that you're going to find out there. It's like shattered glass almost.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool stuff. You don't see that stuff too often. And this image, you know, this is where downscan caught them. You know, this is just a couple single strands of cabbage, and these are smallmouth sitting there. They almost look like a smallmouth when you look at how good and round that they are like that. Just a few smallmouths relating to a single, maybe 2 stalks of cabbage. And those are big bass. Those are really big bass right there. Actually, there's something about them. I think smallmouths and weeds and how they relate to each other stumps a lot of fishermen, and also produces some really big smallmouths for those that can figure that deal. Because as a natural rule, smallmouths don't generally like the weeds too much. Maybe the edges, but not in.
Yeah, it depends on the lake. But yeah, they typically kind of cruise around the edges of them more. So
I mean, how often you actually caught them flipping or something in the
often.
grass? It's pretty rare. Pretty rare if they do that. But in this case, you can see, I mean, this is all kind of some rocks and some gravel in here. You know, these are just single stocks. Again, just something for them to hold on to, feel a little more secure, hide behind, whatever it is that they want to do. But I don't know if I'd have picked them out in side imaging, actually. This is a road bed. You know, this is Navionics road bed right here. This is road beds are huge in the South, man. I can't, again, just like a creek channel. And again, creek channels to road beds.
Yeah,
Hugely
they're
important.
just great staging spots. You can see it here. You know, you got some pockets back here where your fish are going to go in the spring, and this road bed gets cut by a bunch of creek channels. I mean, everywhere that crosses the road bed is going to be an awesome staging spot, both for pre-spawn and post-spawn fishes who are working their way back out.
And the road beds are hard.
Yeah,
they got little hard spots on them, stuff like that. What's some of your favorite baits for targeting in road beds?
Cranking is a really good way to just cover water on them. Football jig, Carolina rig, you know, depending on the depth, but and the time of the year too. You know, if it's a pre-spawn, it might be more like chatterbait, rattle trap stuff. And if it's post-spawn, it might be more cranking, big worm stuff. But they're just stopping
Staging
places
areas,
for
definitely.
fish, yeah. Stop signs.
And these, you know, they're pretty much dead on. You can see like this road bed as soon as we're crawling up onto it, and it comes up out of semi-deep water to that edge. You can see these greens right here. That means it's hard. You know, it's a hard bottom area. And obviously it has to be hard if it's stayed there for that long, it's that predominant. What do we got here? I can't see it because of our screen. Okay, this is one of those images we were talking about earlier. If you compare this image right here, this is weeds on your traditional sonar. If you can really see it, there is a boulder right here. Okay, same image as what we were using before. And right here, and how these greens will show you hard bottoms against that brown. We got the same deal here. You got the brown bottom. You have one boulder that I caught right there. Now I'm going to show you the difference between the same image, but using structure scan and down scan, side imaging, down imaging, whatever you use, and you can see how much easier you can pull, and you can see what more is there. This is why we say for actually searching for fish, your side imaging and stuff like that is going to be so important. There's that boulder sticks out more like the sore thumb, and not only that is there's actually some more. It makes a little bit of a point here, some hard bottom sitting off there. Got some bait in the water column. Looks like a pretty good spot to fish.
Yeah.
These are always good. Single little solo rock coming up. You know, this is all glacier work right here. That's the work of a glacier. Left that lane there when it retreated back. That rock's there, and you can kind of see what these rocks do. This is why I like this image so much. Out here, everything's flat, but everything changes when it hits these rocks. You can see these little waves that it puts in there, and all I wanted to do is show you that of how fish will relate and set up to different kind of structures, depending on what the current's doing and stuff like that. So Where that means is where they are, but definitely some rippling here going on from the water, moving that sand around, and more of a flat image here. Something that you'd probably target if you guys were fishing this for some smallies.
Yeah. But one thing about shield rock, like we showed you that screenshot before, it was just solid shield rock everywhere. I probably wouldn't have fished there at all, but it seems like in these, when you do get this shield rock, these little areas where this rock crumbles off, these little spots, those are kind of the sweet spots. These are the areas I'm going to fish. Maybe this little edge, this little bit where it outcrops. So you're probably not going to catch a ton right here on this straight shield rock. And that'll save you a lot of time, especially on the Great Lakes. You'd see a rock like, I mean, it'd be a whole reef. It'd be like a mile long of that shield rock, and there'd be a couple little areas where this rock broke up. Those are going to be your key spots. And you can save yourself hours of fishing time with side scan. Just drive around at once and pretty much call your shot on them.
I hope you guys are paying attention there, because he just gave you some pretty good juice on where to target on that whole deal. That's pretty specific stuff. So I hope you guys are paying attention to that, because that was some awesome information right there. Wow. I see fish
Everywhere.
What do we got going on, Lau?
That's a big school.
Yeah, that's a monster school. I've only seen something like this one time in my life that was so good. It was actually in the deepest bowl of a lake right before it was about to freeze up. What do we got going on here?
It's a little reservoir close to where we live, loaded with catfish and bass, and those are mostly all carp and catfish.
You ever catch smallies out in the mix of them too?
Oh yeah. Yep.
What's going on? You think they're all relating like that together and that? I mean, there's 1,000 bass there, or 1,000 fish there. What's going on, you think?
They're just all sitting in the basin.
I mean,
you can see the water temp. It's the middle of summer.
Yeah.
But they're just sitting out in the basin.
That's some of the deepest water on the lake. Huh?
Yep.
Coolest water, and then in the middle of summer for them.
Yep.
Definitely.
Yep.
Cool shot, man. It's a lot of fish.
A lot of fish.
We got going on here. This is structure scan, down scan. You can see structure scan, it picks up the fish just fine. And if you're really paying attention close and got your eyes right in there, but down scan will show them to you here. And they're sitting right on top of the hump. Here you got a bunch of bait, some shad sitting in here. I think these are spotted bass, if I remember correctly. And they're right towards the end of this big hump coming off here. They got their baits real close. I don't think none of us like to live too far away from our refrigerator, do we?
No,
I don't think so. So these fish are just the same. They're going to want to keep that. The bait wants to, structurally is going to follow some of these different contour lines and stuff. And that's what you got to try to intersect, these different areas that are bringing in some deep water next to some of these contour changes, and then find the bass sitting there ready to eat, sitting right up on top.
Looks a lot like a river ledge.
It does. It is. I don't remember where this one's from. It definitely does. And you can even take this. I've seen shots like this from places like Gunnersville and Kentucky, like same thing, but maybe put it at 40 feet. And it's the exact same deal as what you got going on.
Look at that shell too.
Oh, definitely. Same type of deal. This is on Sonar. This one, if I remember right, was actually, these are largemouth. This is a Tennessee River ledge. A lot of times these are your bass sitting up here. When the current gets to pulling, and there's bass out here, some of these bass, some of this is white bass, some of this is stripers, catfish. It's just it's a current spot is what it is. The current's making stuff set up right there in the main river channel, and you got some hard bottom. This right here is your shell beds sitting up here. When the fish, from my experience most of the time, they start pulling the water, and these fish will move up onto here, and they're going to eat. If they ain't moving in that water, these fish will start to push off, and they become really tough to catch. I mean, the water really has to be moving, or you better get tricky to start catching some of those bass. But definitely, but at the same time, you can hit a spot in an hour, and then an hour later not catch nothing. An hour later, they're pulling the water, and your jig won't even hit the bottom, and it's going to be one after another, and you start pulling them out. It's just that crazy. But definitely, you can see this is the hard spot that they want to relate to, and all the rest of these are just kind of off doing their deal. Man, this is a nice little inside weed line right here. Let me go back one. This is what you're looking for, middle of, spring, moving around, post spawn. You get a little post spawn spot. Right here on your left, you got a retaining wall, and I don't care. When you're talking about shallow water and fish moving in and out, retaining walls are awesome, and they're going to use them a lot. A lot of times you got a little deeper water right here, or I've been to places where it drops, the water drops so quick that they got to put rock underneath these retaining walls to get them from eroding. That's the word I'm looking for. Eroding away. So sometimes you have rock here. I don't see any rock. But then you also got this little inside weed line right here. You can see the shadows that I'm casting as my boat's going away. Awesome spot for those pre-spawn, post-spawn bass to move in and out of shallows. I'm thinking a wacky rig Senko would be pretty stellar in there. Any other baits would do good? Wake bait maybe?
Swim bait,
Swim bait's always good.
It's actually an outside grass line, but whatever.
It's the what?
It's an outside grass line, but
Is
whatever.
it?
Well, there's grass all the way to the bank.
Oh, yeah, but this is your thick grass. Yeah, I got you. This image right here, this is with Lowrance's Structure Scan 3D. You can see if I move this down, I mean, you can see a lot of stuff in some real shallow water. I'm in 2 feet or less right here. And I mean, I don't care whether it's Humminbird or Lowrance, the technology these days are getting so good. This is awesome to be able to move around in shallow water and be able to see stuff like this. The next image, I believe, is same type of deal. And you can even see like scrapes where people are scraping their skag and stuff like that on the bottoms in those areas. Nice just to be able to move water and you know, some of these settings I started experimenting with after I took these. Now I can bust this out to like 100 feet in these shallow waters and really see. And when you're dealing with shallow bays and shallow water, you want to cover water quick.
You can actually use your side scan for almost a navigation tool too. I mean, obviously you can't see what's in front of the boat, but you can pick up little ditches in there and, you know, kind of follow them for the most part. Obviously I won't go real fast, but
no, definitely not. Yeah, gotcha.
We'll keep you in the deeper water.
For sure. Spotted bass. How bad do you like fishing for spotted bass, Seth?
They bite.
And that's exactly what they do to you, don't they? They'll sit there, man. You look for them, man. You'll just see them. You know, they show themselves to you. They're very curious fish. You know, here I'm right over the top, and you can already see these fish are coming up to see the boat. They already know the boat's there. This can be hit or miss. You know, sometimes they're active, but sometimes, you know, the tournament after a long practice and tournament going on, and these fish all of a sudden get boat shy. You need to stay away from them and stuff. You can't get right on top. I've had it come right up, look at the boat, and then it's like they disappeared and they're gone. So, but at the same time, you know, what's some of your favorite baits for targeting spots like this when they're under the boat?
Summertime drop shot's pretty hard to beat. Wintertime, a spoon would work real well there, I think.
What about blade bait, bud? Because I'm the blade bait master. All right, what do we got going on here? This is one of my favorite images all year. This is Lake Champlain. This is Oneida. This spot was awesome for me, man. In practice, I found my boy Chad Smith, who I see is logged online here with us today. We found this little spot. We were idling this deal. Right in here, this is actually white perch. And white perch, and you know, they have shad in New York. That's one of the differences they have with us. Huh? Oh, there's a white perch up there.
That's a white bass.
White perch, different fish.
That's a
white
yellow perch.
No, it's a white perch. I'll show it to you.
White perch is a white bass.
Is it?
Yeah.
They just call it the same thing?
Yeah.
Oh, and then it ain't what I'm thinking of.
Or are they?
Either way, that ain't white bass, though. Like a little perch thing like that. A little shad.
They're yellow perch.
Are they?
They got orange fins?
No. No.
They have black stripes?
I'll look it up in a minute. I'll show you. Anyway, in New York, they call them white perch. Not really entirely sure, I guess, what they are now. But definitely, you know, the perch in that time of year, they were just getting done spawning and stuff like that, too. These fish were making me nervous because, like I said, smallmouths on weeds, I never know if they're going to be there again or not, what they're doing. If they're a ghost fish, they freak you out. Found these ones in practice. Chad and I doubled up on our first cast, left, never made it. Idled over a couple times, saw that they were still there, and every single day I went to it. Here's the same image. You just can't see them as well. It's a little bit further down the bar. There's another group of smallmouth hanging there. The bait's not like that, like they were, but man, those fish bailed me out like every time I went to them in the tournament. They really definitely helped me, and they stayed there. Hopefully they'll be there again next year. I doubt it. What do we got going on here? This is a single bass on a sonar image. This is going to be from my deck, looking down on my graph. And that right there is like the work of a hydro wave, stuff like that. Just getting these fish off of the bottom. If I can get just the slightest bit, you know, if he's sitting on the bottom, he looks a lot like this. Yeah. But right in this fashion right here, getting them just to give me a little clearance, get them just to, I mean, this could be the simplest as head looking up or anything, just to tell. And how many times have you looked down there and you've seen something and all of a sudden separates from the bottom, and you know you got to drop on that and catch them.
Yep.
Obviously, you just want your biggest tournament of your life, looking down on them and dropping on them.
Yep.
Drop shot on that fish?
56. I don't know.
Tube?
Where are we at?
I don't even know. Probably Mille Lacs.
Drop shot probably works.
Drop shot would probably get.
Yeah.
Blade bait?
Might be a little early.
Maybe. Yeah, 56, 53, and we're good. 53, 52, we're rolling.
Getting there.
What do we got going on here, boys?
Just you can tell this.
Rocks.
Yeah, this is hard bottom, kind of popping up in a really soft bottom area. You see how dark this stuff is out here. That's pretty much muck, mud, and just little outcroppings of hard bottom. This will show you a lot more. Like if you just threw a jig out here and drug it out here, you might not even realize what all was going on out there. Picture of what's going on down there. All the little hard bottom spots that are really down there.
Yeah, and when you see this black right here, I mean that's a really soft bottom. You know, your sonar is pinging and hitting that, and it's going through the muck. That's why it's bringing back such a soft reading. It's not coming back so quick. When it hits something like a rock or sand or gravel, the harder it is, the faster it's going to ping back, come back to your transducer, and that your transducer can actually sit there and ping back and forth. And that's what's going to give you that. So a lot of times when you're seeing these blacks, these mucks, I don't really catch too much out of the muck generally. But these transition lines and stuff like this, I mean, this can be good stuff.
But at the same time, when you get out here, this 100+ speed, a lot of times, I mean, it doesn't matter how hard the bottom is. It's eventually, unless it's perfectly flat, you're going to start to get some darkness in there just from, the depth rolling off and your sonar not hitting at the right angle. So, that's another little piece of advice. If I was running around, okay, it's 12 foot here. This kind of image I'm getting, I might tighten this up more to 75 feet because you're not going to get a great picture once you get out here in that shallow water. Obviously, it's coming up this way, so you'll get a better picture to the right, but it's getting deeper out this way, so that image is going to roll off and get a little dark on you too.
And same as like right in here, once you start hitting some of these higher spots, you're casting shadows past you anyway, so you can't really see a whole lot. So a lot of times when people ask about, their settings off to the side on how far they're going to shoot, a lot of that's just relative to what you can see, how far it's going up and down. If you're in a big flat bay and everything's 5 feet, we'll crank her open and let her rip. It's all sand. You're looking for fish. But if it's moving a lot, I mean, I don't care what you're using. You can't shoot through rock. You can't see what's on the other side. So you may as well then start to bring it in. And the closer you're in, the better detail you're going to get. Man, people ask, I get this email quite a bit, thermocline. This is a definite thermocline. Not a whole heck of a lot can live underneath that oxygen line right there. Thermoclines are pretty easy to see on your graph. And then the environment, you see the fish and all that stuff. This is down here by the dam on Sam Rayburn. Great spot for there to be a thermocline like that. Some of the deepest water they have. And these fish are sitting out there. Probably not going to catch nothing underneath that thermocline right there.
Yep.
This is a good little image. This is Mille Lacs for sure. Just you got different kind of rocks, reef here. These little transition lines will show you. I mean, a transition line essentially here, it's coming out from a little bit deeper water. It's going to be a little softer and coming up to the top, and those fish just roam that deal. And here's two smallies right here. You get on this, you can't see them too great when you're on the rocks. Everything's so white, it's going to be hard to see them. But you start pegging, you start seeing a couple of these. My rule of thumb is if I see 5, there's 20 of them down there somewhere. So definitely when you start seeing those marks, I mean, if it ain't on the bottom, it's a fish. You just have to make sure you're around something. No problem, Chad's hitting us up. Thanks for the shout out.
We got to whip through these, man. We got a million.
We're almost done, all right. What do you got going on here? Sand rock with a mud bottom, kind of like just like the other one we were looking at. And you can see even sand's a little bit whiter than the muck. So you can everything's kind of relative. Gravel will be even a little more than this, and then obviously rock is going to be more like that. Going on here. Road bed or something? Looks like road bed to me. Right. You can see he came at it from this side, so that exposed all this because it shines its light on that, but then casts a shadow on this side. And right here, as it turns, you can't see what's over here, but you can relate by how steep this is right here, by how far away them shadows start to get. And it looks like it's a pretty decent draft. Me too. Shadows mean there's some droppage. Which all form contours and everything else. Same type of deal here. What is this? Large boulders in a tree. Where's the tree
Yeah, you
at?
can see the shadows down
Oh, the
there.
tree down here. Yep,
Yep.
definitely.
Brush pile.
Hard in here, too. This whole center
Mhm.
range is real hard.
See where it breaks off here too. So
Straight drops. These fish?
Yeah, most likely.
Yeah. Weed roller.
Mhm.
Weed rollers are killer in the spring
Mhm.
too, man. Definitely good areas. A lot of times you get your bluegills, your sunbuns, and all that up in here, and those bass like to sit right on these edges of these rollers, and these rollers are meant to keep the grass from growing around the docks and stuff like that, so the kids can swim. But man, they can be pretty awesome fish catching tools around them.
got some nice hard edge.
This is actually up a really narrow river we fish.
Catch some bass around.
Oh,
them?
yeah.
All right, this is from just the other day. Actually, I got the pleasure of going out with the St. Paul Fire Department and teaching them how to use their Lowrance units for search and rescue. Honestly, a little depressing being out there and learning why you don't ever want search and rescue looking for you. It's never a good sign. But we did get to play with some mannequins and stuff and try to get them to pick up on sonar. Now, this is an awesome image, but you got to take away the rope because obviously we have to get the mannequin back somehow. So the rope was kind of cheating because we can see the rope and then see it, but you can see the head of the mannequin right here, his body and his torso, and then coming down to his legs sitting right there. I just thought that was just an awesome image. That's sitting really on the bottom, definitely. And those guys are awesome. And just seriously, guys, I mean, we all on the water. I don't want to take this whole thing into a sour note, but wear your life jackets, man. You're on them. Some of the stories I got from these guys, a simple life jacket can save a lot of lives, and we're all in the water a bunch. We need to be smart about that. And nobody wants to be that guy that they're looking for right there. That's for sure.
No.
All right, we're going to bring Lyle into this. This is some pretty cool technology out there. I'm going to let Lyle and his boy, obviously Casey's not here, but Lyle and his boy Casey are awesome at this kind of stuff. And you call this farming. Why don't you tell them what you're doing right here?
I mean, we're basically taking recordings from our scans and laying them out on a whole map. And we can take this map and put it on a Google Earth image and draw out our sweet spots. And when you can just go out and scan a complete lake and just go home and sit on your computer and pick out all the sweet spots and go catch fish on those spots, it's awesome.
So you're going out there, and each one of these are here's your center line. These are each one of your images of your side imaging laid on top of each other.
Yep.
So essentially, you can go look at a Navionics map before you ever even go out there. Look for the contours that are going to potentially hold what it is you're looking for. Go out there and record them images, and then lay that down and do your homework. And this is so awesome because you forget stuff. I mean, you can't help it. If you're
how many times you scan and you throw a waypoint down and you miss something.
Or next thing you know, you got 80 waypoints and you haven't even made a cast yet. And you're like, okay, I don't know if there's bass there yet.
This is definitely going to save you a lot of waypoints, because when you're scanning around, you come across this, you're going to throw dot, dot, dot on there, dot, dot on that, come back through here. More on this edge, when you get back and look at the whole big picture, I mean, this is probably going to be more your sweet spot than all of this up here, even though, this looks beautiful and there's nice edges on it and stuff. When you look at this in big picture, you can see all that point comes way out, nice little turn in there and a couple of high spots off of it, rather than, focusing your energy right here where this big pile of rocks is that,
Look at all
isn't really the sweet spot.
Yeah, it just gives you a different perspective.
Absolutely. It makes it real.
Yeah.
That's what it does. It makes it, I mean, how often can you actually, it looks like you eliminated the water from there and just look at the way the land looks. Here's another one, man. I love this stuff. It's cool. You can see some of here's your muck, here's your kind of transitions, your sand, your gravel, and your rock.
Yeah.
Awesome image. And you could sit there and, like Seth was saying, drop a waypoint here, drop a waypoint here. This works with Humminbird or Lowrance, and then put it on your put it right on your Navionics map when you get out on the water and you're targeting those areas just like that.
There's some other cool stuff that you don't really like. If you're just side scanning, this probably might not stick out that much to you, but when you look back big picture, this is kind of a really cool little bottom transition that you might not even have fished before. You might spend your time up on all this stuff, even though that's kind of a cool little spot out there, and some other stuff in here that you might not have messed with. It's cool to see it in a big picture rather than just 50 to 100 feet at a time.
And take it from a guy that spends a lot of time trying to interpret what his side imaging is telling him and stuff like that. I mean, when you're around stuff like this, this is going to take your time, and you will forget about something like this. You won't notice that until you look back at it now and say, oh, wow, that could be it. That could hold something. And, this could be the difference. A lot of times you get to these tournaments, everybody's fishing here. It's the guy sitting out there on that transition line that's whacking, maybe getting 8 bites a day, but they're all 4-pounders type deal. And so those are just some of the little things. You can also zoom in on this and really start to look at some of your stuff, right?
Yeah, and especially when you can go pick out the bigger boulders like this one on the left there.
These beds up here?
Yeah, those are sunfish beds. And we key in on that a lot, and you'll see largemouth sitting in those rocks waiting for those bluegills to come off those beds.
Heck yeah. Waiting for your jig to come in there.
Oh, yeah.
Right on. We got here, same deal. Boulders. Nice boulders.
Yep.
Real big rocks.
Big boulders.
Yep, those are nice. I like this stuff, man. It's just cool to see it in this format. Tell them what happens here. Like when you use the software, it's called Reefmaster.
Yep.
When you're using Reefmaster, which is independent, works for Humminbird, Lowrance. Is that it? That we know.
Everybody.
Everybody.
You can take any sonar along.
And it's relatively inexpensive software.
Yeah.
What happens when you overlap like you did here? Here you're going this way, and then here you're going this way. What happens? You
can actually take an image and lay it over another image if that image is better than the one that's underneath it. So if you're since we were coming the one way and that one's going this way, the image that's on top looked better than the one that was underneath. So we used that image for the picture.
Awesome.
Yeah. Big rock.
Solitary rocks.
Yeah.
Jackpot, right?
Yeah.
There's fish there, I promise.
Yeah.
All right, man. I don't know what happened to that one. Let me go back. Sorry, guys. All right. Webinar's done. We got a ton of questions, so we're far from done, but we knew that was going to happen. We want to encourage that. Definitely all these webinars are recorded, so if you missed it today, you're out of the prize chute. I apologize, but we definitely at the same time, we have all these available out there. One thing we're working on, too, for this coming year is we are going to try to put together some sort of a mailer, and we ain't going to kill everybody with it. We're going to plan to do these webinars probably for a year, quarterly. That way our content's always coming at you strong. We got good stuff to talk about, relative stuff to talk about, and when you make sure that our content's always good so that we ain't wasting nobody's time and everybody's keeping the quality of the webinars that they're used to on these deals. So hopefully on that, we'll try to send anyone who ever signs up for a webinar, we're hoping to have that set up and put you in that database. Obviously, if you don't want to be in there, I guess just let me know you don't want to be in there, and then don't be in there. Next webinar, March 21st. Topic we're still kind of nailing down. We got a couple, some JDM real guys coming in. Shark, Sharuku, Kashida, our boy. I don't know if I said that right. I'm sorry, Shark, because I just always call him Shark, dude. And Addicts Fishing's coming in. We're going to sit there. We're going to break down some different stuff. Adam's got some awesome stuff. Huge network. Do some pretty cool things. Some Daiwa reels.
Yeah.
We're going to just talk about some off-season stuff. Boat stuff.
Both got a new boat coming.
Yeah.
Might do some rigging stuff.
That's a good call. Off-season stuff. Getting ready for the season. The Classic will be later on that week. That way we can talk about a little bit of Bassmaster Classic, see how Feider and I will already have a few tournaments under our belt. And, it'll be a good one. We'll have a couple guests. March 21st, Tuesday. It's a little ways out there. Breezy, the Fisherman's Widow.
Hey.
We couldn't do it without her. Swear to God, we couldn't. Because Seth and I can't do this stuff. We go fishing. We play the tackle all day. She comes in here and makes this thing happen, gets our ADD on track, and gets us rolling. She's also been kicking butt with some videos and photos out there. Definitely check out the Fisherman's Widow, thefishermanswidow.com. All these guys help us out huge, man. These companies are awesome. Bass Utopia, White to Fish, Cappers, Classic Bass, Bassies, Featherwick, Dr. Sonar, they all are on board our webinars that share our information out there to their giant networks. Definitely check these guys out. They're all out here for the bass fishermen. Casey and Lyle. Awesome, dude.
Yeah,
Casey, Lyle.
Thanks for having us, man.
We talked about some pretty technical stuff a little bit to a lot of these people, but let me tell you, these are some fish snatchers. These guys aren't no joke. Matter of fact, I believe they hold the South Dakota smallmouth bass record. A giant caught this spring.
Yep.
Videos on Where to Fish.
Where to Fish, yep.
Awesome time. They spend a lot of time. They're a team. They do everything together. And Their content's awesome. Check them out. Bass for All Outdoors. Bass, Instagram and Facebook. And then, of course, individually, Casey and Lyle. Casey, dude, wish you could be here, brother. You do some awesome work, man. Loving it. Real quick, Navionics, we want to thank everybody for attending. Seth and I are always available. And please, sometimes we get wrapped up and busy like everyone else. Out of sight becomes out of mind. If we don't get back to you guys, it is never personal. Just hit us up again. That's how we work, dude. We want to answer you. Just because we didn't get to you doesn't mean we don't want to. Please, by all means, keep the questions coming at us. And if you have anything specific, any questions at all, we're available to you. We couldn't do none of this stuff without you guys. And then Featherwick, I want to talk a little bit about Featherwick before we get into questions. Featherwick's been awesome.
They have been.
It's a society of anglers, basically, man. They're doing a lot of things. Bud Cipoletti out of New York founded it. Awesome guy. We're talking about fishermen, man. Real fishermen. Fishermen stuff. A solid group of individuals. Garrett Rockamora down in Florida. Carl Jochimson, Fred Urbanus, you name it, man. There's some pretty cool guys in this group. List is way too long for me to go off of. They're doing everything from photos and videos.
Really cool videos.
Yeah, private ponds. I mean, you're talking about like golf course type stuff that's been around for forever, but in fishing, and it's about time. Featherwick's an awesome deal coming up. Proud to be a member of it, and definitely for the bass fishermen. And look for some solid content coming out from Featherwick, man. Whoever gets that $300 tag warehouse, buy some awesome stuff, dude, because that's cool.
Thanks, Bud.
Thanks, man.
Bud, you're the best, Bud. All right, let me
questions. We got
get to these questions. We got a 200-something question. All right, I'm going to slide this a little closer so I can read. Start from the top or the bottom? Top, probably.
All right, from the bottom.
I have an Onyx 8. Oh, man. All right, I have an Onyx 8, and it's my first SI unit. I'm sure you'll cover this, but I'm having a hard time determining what is a marked fish.
I think we went over that.
Marked fish, a lot of times on the side, I'm trying to see a quick side image if I can. Marked fish, a lot of times come off.
They look white, and they're usually suspended up off the bottom.
Get a shadow to pop behind.
Yeah, if they're up off the bottom, there'll be a shadow there. It's a little white speck. We pointed it out a little earlier. Definitely. If you're, when is the bad boy started? We're done. Let's go snap, talk fishing. Are you going to introduce his mullet too? I should. Or he thinks I should. Let's put it that way. He does have a sweet ass mullet, I guess, and he's got sides. He's got stripes in the sides now. So
take a gander.
You should have seen the mustache. I was trying to get him to keep the mustache off, but his girl Dayton wasn't going to let that slide. So
yeah, she cut me off.
She did. So that's gone. All right, and you get trophy. What? Twitch event, Seth will get his blue trophy for Josh. What does that mean?
Elite Series trophy.
Oh, yeah. I got it.
Well, just don't answer. All right.
Feider, did you use the Humminbird 360 on Mille Lacs, or let me guess?
No. I don't own a Humminbird 360. They're expensive.
Yeah, he doesn't have one. At the same time, he pretty much knew some of those areas pretty damn well going into that tournament.
I did use my side scan a ton during that tournament. I ended up catching a lot of fish off stuff I'd never even fished before. So the side scan was huge for me. I'd find kind of isolated boulders, throw a dot on them, go back and fish them.
They don't work when they're coming out of the water.
360s?
No.
Okay.
No, they don't. That's true. That is something to think about. Smallmouth fishing, a lot of times that's where deep water fishing is where that thing shines a bunch, and then big waves can make that, I guess, a little bit. Yep, definitely. And you definitely had some big waves going on in that tournament. Why do my lures look so large on the screen when I drop it down in front of my transducer?
It's a great question.
It's an awesome question.
I don't know why. Like, my worm looks like the same size as a 4-pound bass, but
well, that's relative.
It does.
It's different too. It's relative. I can take, depending on how fast that boat is moving, and your ping speed is going to be hugely important. But if your boat's not moving and you're sitting over a bluegill and he stays underneath your sonar, I can make him look like a muskie all day of the week. It's going to be really long. If the wind's blowing and you're moving around, your chances are why you don't see it there is because it's hard to keep that thing underneath your sonar when the wind is blowing hard and stuff like that. So that's why that looks like that, and it is a good question. It's just it does.
Okay.
Let's
Let's see if I can make this look good.
Once you get going, can you address how to use electronics effectively in shallow water? You know, a lot of times in shallow, the question was, once you get going, can you address how to use electronics effectively in shallow water? I mean, it just depends on what you're doing. They have a lot of tools now. I mean, we went through 360 and spotlight scan. We went to side imaging, structure scan, sonar. I mean, you just got to find the right tool for the right job in what you're doing. But at the same time, if a lot of times, I'm sorry, but we can talk electronics all we want, but if I'm fishing shallow water, my best tool is my eyeballs. And
get you some amphibious.
Get you some amphibious. You want to see in the water, paying attention to what's going around, little ripples on top of the water. I can't tell you, the more and more I start paying attention to that, the more and more bass get put in the live well. How pivotal was having side imaging to find big smallies on Mille Lacs? You kind of talked about that.
It was crucial. More so for the structure. A lot of the other fish I couldn't really even see.
Which color palettes do you use the most for side imaging? Do you switch between the colors or stay with the same ones? On Lowrance, these are all number 6, I believe. That's the one I use. I also don't mind the blue one. But some of those other ones are actually reversed. So you want to see, I'm trained to see whites and stuff to know what's hard. In a reverse pattern, everything becomes different. So I don't like none of them. But the number 6 and whichever one the blue one is, I'm going to say are probably your 2 best on a Lowrance unit when it comes to side imaging.
With Humminbird, I like the standard amber one the most, almost all the time. I will go to that blue one when I get around like a lot of really shallow, nasty stuff, docks and trees and stuff.
I'm curious to see if Feider can repeat his smallmouth performance at Cherokee in the first Elite. It's loaded with brown fish. I'll be there as a marshal, and I'm looking forward to it.
I am looking forward to it as well. I don't know how it's going to go. I might get last place, but it looks good. It's got a lot of brown ones in it. Winter tournament. Should be fun.
I can tell you personally, I know he's putting in a lot of time on that one, trying to get geared up for it. So definitely going to be a good schedule for Seth and the entire Elite Series this year coming up. That's for sure. All free fish lane here. That's right.
Yeah, it is.
When fishing a new lake, John asks, how long do you typically take to idle around to map the lake? Well, generally, I mean, I'm not necessarily always mapping the lake. I'm recording sonar a bunch right now, but at the same time, you know, when I'm looking for sonar, that's just so relative to what I'm doing that day and what the structures are. You know, if I'm showing up and I got a long practice and I want to look around, I might not ever make a cast, and I might sit there and just look around. Or sometimes
a lot of variables in that.
Yeah.
But I'll definitely like sample the lake. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna idle every inch of it, but you know, key little points and stuff in each creek I go into, I might run over, just kind of see what's happening in each creek, see if there's bait, see if there's fish. It's always on my graph, so if I'm not running it, I'm looking at it.
Casey asks, how does the spot scan from Lowrance work? Spotlight scan works a lot like 360, except you have to use it manually from your trolling motor, which has its benefits and also has its negatives. You know, it's not always working for you and letting you see it. So depending on what the waves are doing, it might not even be a player. If things are relatively calm, then it can be a little nicer because you can actually stay on top of fish a little bit. Like Lyle was saying earlier, when they're moving, you can stay with them a little quick. You control how fast that thing goes. They're kind of a horse apiece. Bottom line is, whatever unit you're running, it's whatever one you're going to have to use for using that.
Cheetah asks, when's the right time to use down scan? I use my side scan, but never down. I like side scan and 2D sonar, probably the best, and down scan's usually kind of more just tell what's down there. Is it grass? Is it brush? Is it rock? Is it grass? That's where I really like my down scan.
You know, if you're running 2 graphs at your face, like a lot of guys are able to do this day and age, you can see on a lot of my slides, I'm mostly side imaging. And then I have a little bit of sliver because I'm also running a little bit of sonar next to my graph. So I'm getting the best of all worlds right in front of my face. But if you're running 1 graph, I'm going to tell you I'd probably have it on structure scan or side imaging, and traditional sonar and map are going to be your 3 main ones that you can do. And you can change around your settings. At least I know on a Lowrance you can. I'm sure on a Humminbird you can. Lowrance will let you, put the bottom. You want that to be as far left to right as you possibly can with side imaging, and then you can stack your map and your sonar up on top.
Right there.
Wait, son?
Yeah.
What is the setting on a touchscreen for sensitivity on 2D sonar? On a Lowrance, it says sensitivity right next to it. So if you highlight, like on this image over
He's
here.
asking you what percentage you're putting in.
What the actual setting is. What is setting in touchscreen for sensitivity in 2D sonar? My setting, honestly, on my sensitivity, I leave it at a factory setting. I don't mind the cloudiness on it, because at least I'm seeing everything that I want to see. I'm pretty trained to ignore a lot of the clutter that's going around and looking for what I want. I just don't want to miss anything.
All right. Sean asks, where's your transducer mounted, inside or out? When I'm on my wheel, I actually have two. I have a glassed-in one and an external one, glassed-in one. The high-speed deucer I can use while I'm running. I can grab stuff 25 to 40 miles an hour. Then I have one external that I'll kick over when I slow down to idle speed and pick up on that. And trolling motor, I always use an external one. I don't use the universal sonar ones mounted in the trolling motors. I don't think they're as good.
Cody asks, is that considered a lot of noise at the top of these images? I have no clue, but people always tell me to try to eliminate that.
It doesn't bother me.
I get it. It doesn't bother me at all, man.
I don't see like the bottom 5 feet. I don't really care what the top looks like.
Yep. And again, in a lot of these, some of these images too, you got to remember, I'm looking at my front graph while I'm also have it running in the back. And whenever you have that going on and you drop that trolling motor, you're going to get a level of interference going on. You can shut your sonar off in the back, shut it off if it bothers you that much. For me, it definitely doesn't. I can still see the images that I'm going for, and a lot of times I like to look back at that other one behind me. How do you deal with river systems and contour lines with natural changes? Is there an online community for updated maps or creeks or other areas that change often? There is actually. Navionics makes sonar charts, which is awesome. It changes with time as people continue to log mapping and stuff and staying with it. It changes maps. It's the only software that I know of right now that can attempt to stay with river changes. Otherwise, you're buying old data, because bottom line is a river can change in a year. Absolutely no problem.
Every time the water comes up and down. Question is, do the arches get elongated in down scan and side scan? The slower you go, the slower you go, the longer they get.
Definitely. What are you finding for optimal speed for graphing on side imaging, down imaging?
You can run your settings with that. I like, just because the nature of the beast, I got to cover as much water as I can. I'll crank my speed up to like 6, and then that way I can drive almost 7-8 miles an hour and still get a good picture.
How do you choose color? We talked about color on side imaging. On your down scan, is there anything that gives you a better idea of a fish is a drop down fish versus something else? Nick, a lot of times for me, and I think for Seth too, we're looking at traditional sonar when we're looking at when we're actually trying to drop on it. I don't use my down scan to drop on fish. Definitely using my sonar. That's what I'm looking for.
You generally see your bait on down scan.
Lyle, you the same, bud?
Yeah.
Traditional sonar for actually dropping down on the target.
Yep.
Daryl asks, how do you get such clear SS images? I have an LSS2 X deucer on an LSS1 box on an HD10, HD8, nowhere near that clear. Daryl, I'm sorry, brother. That's an upgrade into the 3D, dude. All these images are new images. We try to keep these all fresh. I am running the Structure Scan 3D. Honestly, the 3D image, the actual 3D functioning of that box is pretty cool. I'm still using it, down south for those creek channels and stuff. I kind of saw some stuff that I really liked about it. But bottom line is that Structure Scan box is that 3D Structure Scan box is super tuned, man. It's seriously badass, and you can get super shallow feeds, and you can also and then again, playing with contrast, such a big deal when you're playing with contrast to really set those things in. But one of the easiest things to do. The side scan shot that Seth just commented on, is that a school bass or bait fish? Probably not. We don't really know, man. It's probably bass. Yep. Can you show the difference between fish and rock on the side image, please?
Click on that.
No, you can't.
Okay. Well, I can't really zoom in. There's one rock here in this that kind of casts a more like the shape and the shadow of it. And I can't really see it at the zoom level, but there's little white specks in these. Those are little tiny bluegills. But I was the only one I could pull up real quick that had a rock and fish in it that you could see. And a lot of times, if there's a lot of rock, it's going to be really hard to see the fish. The fish you're seeing on side scan are typically suspended fish. There'll be a long white line with a small shadow behind them.
Andrew, the differences between Lowrance and Humminbird structure scan and side imaging, man, that's going to be personal preference. I've always ran Lowrance, and that's what I use. These guys run Humminbird. That's what they use. They're a horse apiece, man. You just got to kind of go through the different features of what they have and stuff like that and decide what works best for you. But I think we can all agree very similar in what you're looking at. Well, I have no problem reading theirs. They have no problem reading mine. What's the best setting to locate hard bottom when fishing weedy lakes, like a lot in the cities are? I told you on traditional sonar, I like the PAL 13 setting to see that on traditional sonar. Otherwise, flip on your side scan and down scan. Just
side scan is going to show you that the best.
John asked, what kind of baits would you throw when bass are on the bottom above standing brush? Time of year is going to be another.
Yeah, a lot of variables. Those fish will swim down to the bottom and eat your bait, though.
They'll generally follow it right in there and yank it out of there.
A shadow mean.
Read the question.
Okay.
Question.
Brian asked, are the shadows under the dots always a sign of something that's off the bottom on the side scan? Do fish that are holding to the bottom sort of look like rocks / boulders? How can you tell the difference? The ones that are really tight, they're going to be really hard to tell on side scan. But yes, anytime you see a shadow on your side scan, it's something up, sticking above the bottom. Not saying it's not connected to the bottom, but it's raised up off the bottom if you get a shadow.
David asked on the last screenshot on the hard bottom, was that a transition where it went light to dark? Most likely, man. I don't know exactly which one you're referring to, but wherever they go from light to dark like that, those are transition lines from softer bottoms to hard bottoms. Can you explain the range rings on Lowrance, distance from one ring to another ring? Thanks, Charles. Charles, that's good. I actually just started playing with the range rings when I was in tournament fishing, and I already marked the spot. And a lot of times, without the range ring, I'm still trying to figure out those range rings. That's the best question for you. I have it there to show you that it's like 50 feet. I don't honestly know between the rings which one means that. I just know with the rings and how far I'm moving, I can kind of in my head start to calculate how much quicker I'm getting on it. But honestly, it's I've sat there and thought I was really close to it and been on the trolling motor for way too long. I should have been idling longer, and I've also blown right over the top of them. So
one thing I do, I'll just if I'm trying to fish like a specific dot or something, I'll just move my cursor over to it, and it'll pop up and tell you how many feet you are from your cursor, and that gives you a good idea where to put your boat and how far you got to cast.
Matt Gustafson, is the 360 range adjustable? It is. We talked about that right away, so I'm sure that answered your question. Peter Perovich, what's up, dude? Ask Josh, how does the 83-200 come into play when you're scanning? Do you use any other like 50 or just 200? I'm always running 200 on my sonar. I always have it as a 200 kilohertz. I've never really played with the 83 much. I did have an explanation for why you'd want 83, but I'd be lying to you if I try to tell it to you now, so I'm not really sure. What beer's on the menu tonight, Feider?
Coors Light for me.
How close to the bottom do you think the 360 will detect them? Basically, we talked about this. It'll hit them on the bottom, but if they're on the bottom, like with anything, they can hide from you. It's Absolutely. Their camo, basically, is getting against them rocks. Wait, what's the lat long? Nice work. I like that. Tight. How do you fish your drop shot when you see a fish on your graph? Would you drop it straight down if they're down there? Yeah. Man, that range, most of the time. But sometimes you got to get away from them. It all depends. Fighter, why don't you tell them about Mille Lacs? You had to leave it sit there for a little longer.
Yeah, I did. But I still a couple minutes usually. A lot of it depends on your depth. If you see a fish in 12 feet, you're probably going to have to back off it. You see a fish in 30 feet, you can probably sit right on top of it and catch it.
Can you explain what colors hard bottom, soft bottom? I think we got into that a lot. Your hard bottoms are white. Side scan. Oh, my bad. How fast does the 360 scan?
You can make it scan really fast, but it's going to wash out your image really quick. I mean, It's just like
with
side
anything,
scan.
with
Yeah,
anything,
yeah.
man. The faster you go, the less of an image you're gonna get.
It's side scan going in a circle.
Yep. What we
that.
talked about that. How do you identify weed lines with the electronics, and can you tell what type of weeds you are on? You know, you can with time for sure. You can tell milfoil. You get around, you can tell.
Especially on those natural lakes. Certain grasses just kind of grow at certain depths. I mean, you can just almost tell from
and they get clumpy
from the
or
depth
whatever.
it is, and you know, like hydrilla and coontail is probably like the two hardest grass, to get, like the whitest readings or the brightest readings on your side scan. But grass, for some reason, it's real depth specific. It seems like. I mean, you can almost, especially you up shallow, like in backwaters on the river, like you can, like the vegetation will almost draw out the lake map for you. You know, like that pad edge is going to be at that same depth all the way through there, inside and out, and then you know, like all your other types of grasses will kind of tell you the depth of it. But it's a depth will have a lot to do with it too.
And for identifying the weed line, if you're confused, flip on your down scan. That'll show you the. You'll start to see it a lot easier if it's kind of blurry coming through on sonar. How accurate is the Navionics app on smaller lakes using an iPhone when fishing out of the cabin style boat with no electronics? Ron, the app is the exact same as what you're seeing on your graph. There's no difference. The same exact software. They're just giving it to you in an app version for those that exactly that style lake. So they're extremely accurate. And with your iPhone or in your cell phone with your GPS, I mean, it's as good as your graph is for that, just obviously a little smaller. As you parallel a weed line to find a spot, are you just looking for fish on the structure scan? Rarely, actually.
Yeah, rare. I mean, smallmouths will pop out on the outside edge. Largemouths are most likely going to be tucked in the grass. You're either looking for a turn, a point, a hole, or hard bottom hitting the grass edge.
Something different, a stop sign, something along that weed edge makes them stop. Seth, who cut those steps in your hair? I need a haircut. Who do I need to go see?
I went to Great Clips.
Of course.
I've never been there.
Yes, you can tell. Bob asked if you can tell fish are moving on 360. We got into that, of course. And when it scans back, if those fish have moved out of there, or if you haven't moved, I mean, it's all relative. But yeah, you can definitely tell. We got into spotlight scan. Balance covering water between new ID fish. Kyle, we talked about that. You know, what range do you like to set your side scan on to balance covering water and with being able to ID fish? Again, all relative to what you're fishing, what depth you're fishing, what kind of obstacles are on your face, and if you're even actually looking for the real fish. Sometimes, you know, you're looking for their habitat more so in an environment and bait, and then the fish will be there. But again, all relative to what's going on around you.
If you're looking for fish, you probably want to scan a smaller area. But essentially, the deeper and flatter you are, the more area you can see on side scan versus the shallower and steeper you are, the less area you can see.
Talk about shading. I've got a Lakemaster chip that makes things really nice. Is there a way to shade to make Navionics to the same? There is. That is a nice feature on Lakemaster. Humminbird owns Lakemaster. They open that function up on their units for Lakemaster cards. Lowrance just opened up that functionality. Actually has had it and opened up more functionality for Navionics users to do that on their app. You can do that. So yes, the question is yes. I don't know if Humminbird lets Navionics do that on their units, though. I don't think so. I don't believe you can. You'd have to use a Lakemaster card for that on a Humminbird. What's your typical setup? 360 on front and down scan on the back. Perfect. That's exactly right. Side scan, down scan on the back of the boat is where I like it. I've seen it up front. A lot of people use it. I just can't ever keep the boat that still to really utilize it. I love it on the back. I'm fortunate to be able to run another graph on my front that basically is just hijacking what my back is seeing, and that makes it really nice for me to just kind of see and keep the back of the boat's always going to stay a little flatter and a little more straight than your front of your boat's going to.
Yeah. My typical setup, I only run 3 graphs. I got one up front that's typically map and 2D sonar. In the back, one of my graphs is map 2D sonar, and the other graph will be a side scan, down scan.
You guys most likely have trolling motor mounts, but have you guys used side fold down maps on 360 imaging? And if so, do you feel as comfortable with it as you do? This one Lyle's got to read, man, because I'm already lost.
You guys,
I think he's basically, they make a separate mount that goes down off the back of your boat.
The 360 one. Yeah, that's the original one that came out. I think the troll motor one's the deal, right?
Yeah, it's the deal. It's where we do our work from.
Yep. Ryan Johnson, what's up, dude? With the Humminbird 360, would you recommend a trolling motor mounted? We just got into that. Dan asks, is there any way to identify depth changes with the 360? Of course.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's just like side imaging, same deal. Look for shadowing and stuff like that. What's the refresh rate? Okay.
8 to 10 seconds.
Christian, on side scan, if you drive directly over structure, will it still show up on the graph? Yep, absolutely it will.
You'll see it in that black area.
What is your go-to? Yeah, the black middle area is your depth range. It's this area right here is where you're going to see it. What is your go-to? What's the best sensitivity you run on a side scan?
It changes.
That changes. I've used a contrast setting on my sensitivity. It's a contrast setting, and so much of that depends on your depth, your water clarity, and things like that. So you just change your contrast. It's the simplest thing in the world to do. It's like a photo. If it's too much, if it's blown out, it's going to be real white. You can't read it. If it's not enough exposure, it's too black. You can't read nothing. Find that middle read where your eyes read, you'll be just good.
Carrie asks, what's the best palette to use for 360 and down scan?
I stick with the same as side imaging.
Same deal, right?
Amber.
The amber one,
Yep.
I'm running down scan. Do you ever use a dual beam? I'm not a big down scanner, to be honest.
I honestly don't even know what that means.
On Lowrance, side image, down image, how can you tell a rock from a fish? It's supposed to predict shadow.
Well, the fish project shadows when they're up, and then they're separated. A rock shadow is always going to be directly off of the rock because the rock has to be on the bottom. So that's going to be a big one. Mind you, if you're seeing a shadow and it's off of a fish that's sitting on the bottom, that's highly unlikely because he's going to be on the bottom. You ain't going to be able to see him anyway.
James Jones asked Josh, what deucer are you using on your trolling motor, and have you ever used or are you familiar with the Navionics AMR TM150 deucer for 2D and DI? Wow, those are some beautiful smileys in your introduction pic.
Yeah, they are. James, on my troll motor, I usually now I got the all tracks. It'll be or a 4-track, either one, and I'm running. I keep the Sonar in it for a backup, and I just run a traditional 83-200 Lowrance with like the clamp on it, and that's what I'm running just to get me depth and water temp. Okay.
Can you explain the dark area in the center of the side scan? I don't understand how you can split a rock and it's 10 feet up each side.
Joe, we got into this. We talked about it. I actually got to go out with you and doing electronics training. The side scan, same deal as down scan. All it's just showing you the water column in between. These two lines actually match up and meet. So when I come over and split a rock, I'm going to see the rock right here, and I'm going to see it right in the middle, or right on both sides. Sorry, not middle. On both sides of that side imaging, because that range goes straight down and out.
That black is your depth, essentially. That's the distance from your boat hitting the bottom. You know, obviously, the deeper you are, the wider this gets. The shallower you are, the tighter this gets right in here. So, I mean, that's essentially your sonar before it hits the bottom.
And Joe, just so you know, Feider and I will be in Florida. Are you going to Florida? Yeah, we'll be in Florida relatively soon. We're going to come hit up a couple of your holes you're bragging about to me. We're excited about it.
Okay.
Tom asks, what do you look for when using DI? I only have a 5-inch screen, and all I see is extremely tiny white dots. Not sure if they are fish. I hate to tell you, man, here's the deal with 5-inch screens. For budget-wise, they're great, but for almost everything else, they're really not. You can't see anything in a 5. It really, you want to buy the biggest. I get how that all works, but if you definitely don't split the screen on a 5-inch screen, you're going to want to see everything, and you're probably going to have to keep your range on your outside shorter to be able to definitely see what it is that you're looking at.
Aaron asks, when it gets dark on the side imaging, is that because it's too deep on that side? That usually I mean, it's either soft bottom or a depth change going to the deep.
Essentially, either a
So it's rolling
shadows
off, like your
or
angle that your
Yeah.
transducer just can't hit it anymore.
There's nothing to return the signal.
Okay,
You don't-
Sean S. and the okay. When an image shows up on both the left and right sides when viewing
Yep.
side scans, that meter directly over it. Yes.
Yep, it does.
Eric asks, can you talk about how you fine tune your contrast settings on side scan?
I do it on the Hummer.
Well, there's a settings button. That's
Yeah.
something you kind of got to play with.
The
till you get some
settings says
experience,
on the Lowrance, you highlight that screen. It says contrast in the menu right next to it. You touch it, take it out of setting, just move it up and down. It's awesome and it's super easy. Or call me and I'll go out on the water with you.
Ethan asks how to identify what species of fish you're looking at with your images. A lot of times, like kind of the places and where they stack up and how they're sitting will tell you a lot. If you're looking for like largemouth and smallmouth, they don't really like stand on top of each other. They'll be like next to each other along the bottom. Spotted bass will get real stacked up. Your crappies, your white bass will get real
Gar
stacked
love
up.
to roll on each other.
And kind of the length of the image will show you too. You know, if it's a lot of like short, fat ones, those are probably bass. If you're seeing long, skinny ones, they're probably walleyes or you know, whatever you might have in your deal.
Casey asked, do you use marker buoys along with your depth finders in deeper water? Yeah, I do, but I can tell you what, ever since point 1 came out, and I haven't used my buoys too much. I mean, to be able to have that accurate and internal compass on your point 1 pucks and stuff like that, the GPS these days are getting, the satellite and stuff is getting so good.
Yeah.
It knows where my boat is. It knows which way it's turned. I use my buoy less and less and less now.
Maybe if I'm being sneaky and trying to turn off all my graphs or something, I might throw a buoy out. That's about it.
Guiding, I use it a bunch still too.
Yeah. What's
the best color? Pat, we did that. 455 or 800? Which one do y'all use to find? Is Humminbird 455 and 800 too?
Yeah.
I can tell you this. Before I had the 3D from Structure Scan. Number one, 3D from Structure Scan only gives you one choice, and it's a refined 800 that they're using. But anything before that, I actually preferred 455 in anything I was dealing with in Minnesota. At really deep water, I liked 800. It gives you a more defined range, but doesn't give you near the range that 455 did. But again, on the 3D setting, you only have one choice.
John asks, what baits do you fish around bluegill beds? A lot. Shallow ones, swim jig. Top water is really good. Senko is good. Deeper ones, crankbait, jig.
You know, I think that's when a wake bait will shine too around stuff like that.
Swim jig's
swim jig's going to be okay. Swim jig, number one choice.
Anthony asks, I fish shallow water a lot. Flipping pitching is down scan, side scan on your trolling motor really necessary? I don't use it. I just run 2D sonar up front. Are Lowrance and Humminbird units usually set up the same, or are they different setting, better for different units?
Definitely, probably. I mean, tough to know without using them on the regular, but they're similar. You know, they have a lot of similar qualities.
A lot of stuff we've been over. Does side scan work as well on lakes with mostly bluffs and really steep banks? It works good. You just can't see as much at a time, you know. But you're probably not looking at it as much, you know. It's 80 feet off the bank, so you don't need to see as much. Okay.
Sorry, guys. Some of these questions we didn't see when we were going through them. We couldn't possibly, so it's going to be tough for us to get back to them.
Ryan asks, I'm new to drop shot fishing. What depth do you catch most of your fish on a drop shot? It'll catch them from 2 feet to 100.
Versatile as they come.
Rob asks, do you guys use sonar more during practice to find spots or more during tournaments? Is it
tournaments?
Yeah, probably using side scan stuff more in practice. And I really like 2D sonar.
Me too. I'm with it.
Especially up front. What are your settings for review? Bluegill best shots. Clear.
Tony asks, when fishing offshore, do you stop and fish an area or structure even if you don't mark any fish? Again, that's so relative to what you're fishing. If it's a place that I can see fish a bunch, you know, it's just reefy and there ain't no weeds and nothing's hiding out, And I feel like in relative in practice, I can see them a bunch and then probably not. But at the same time, if, I fished plenty of good spots that looked right on the side imaging. It looks good, maybe some baits in there, the right kind of structure. It's their home. And sure enough, there's a bunch of fish there for sure.
All right, Cody asks, what's all the noise at the top of the Lowrance screenshots? I think we've been over this.
Not a big deal at all. Do you guys use cameras to confirm bottoms, AquaView? Man, I used to. It's been so long since I used a camera.
We used to a lot.
Man, I can remember sweating my
use them at all.
butt off underneath the blanket.
All they do is show you fish that don't bite.
Yeah. In the hard, there's so many fish you don't even want to look down there sometimes, man. I'm telling you.
Don't even want to know. Okay, Nick asked, can you talk a little about how you like to have all your settings on your units when you're out there scanning, specifically structure scan, down scan? I think we went over the pallets and the speed.
And Nick, definitely, man, we did a couple of these different webinars on that slide that I showed you from before. If you look back, there was one we got into settings in detail. So if you look back, joshdouglasfishing.com, or hit up our YouTube page for it, and you'll go through, and then we got a ton of setting stuff walking you through it real easy. Erosion. That's from that one screenshot. Yeah. We're getting into that. Erosion.
Where is that?
Mud veins. That's where we're at. Mud vein.
Oh, okay.
All right. Those are for those ones, man. Mud vein. I like it. Underwater stream. Is that what that one said? Read it. May as well. You're already.
Yeah. Bill asked best setting for Humminbird 2D sonar and video game fishing. I was able to get my own Lowrance monochrome unit to present my drop shot weight, blah, blah, blah. The newer sonar I got, Humminbird, has great separation but can't see my drop shot. I just get out there on a calm day, and the deeper the water in, the easier it is to do it in. Go get out in like 20, 30, 40 feet of water and just start dropping that thing below, right down on the edge of your transducer, and just mess with your settings till you get to show up good. You don't want to crank it up too much because then everything
10, 12 feet, something like that. You got so much stuff that's pinging and coming back.
Yeah, you ain't even gonna see it in 10. You ain't even gonna see it in 10 feet. Get out deep, go out in 40 feet of water, and mess around with it.
That's all tough. Again, size of fish, so much that depends on how fast the boat's moving, how fast the fish is moving. One thing to consider, though, we should talk about real quick, when you're on the front deck, if you are looking at your traditional sonar, your cone is going to be about a third of the depth that you're in. So if you're in 20 feet, your cone on the bottom is roughly 6.5 feet. On down scan or down imaging, it's whatever feet you're in is the size of your cone on the bottom. So, again, another reason why we use sonar on the front of the boat, because if I'm in 25 feet, I don't really want a 25-foot range that bass can be. I want to see him when he's in that 6-foot range.
Yeah. Bob asks, which palette do you prefer for 2D sonar with a Humminbird? For finding hard bottom, I just use the standard, the red, yellow, blue. I got no problem with that.
Wait, go up once.
Let's guess the structure stuff. Still the same.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, we just talked about that, Corey. Again, another one on video game fishing. You definitely want to be in deeper water. If you're fishing shallower stuff and you're not seeing it, that's why.
Yeah. I don't even like dropping on fish unless I'm in 14, 15 feet of water.
Stephen Crowley, what up, dude? How are you, man? He asked, how do you attack 10-foot cabbage? Man, again, that's an awesome thing. I like cabbage, especially around smallmouth, largemouth. How do you like to fish cabbage? Jerk bait was real strong on that particular one that I was throwing. Swim baits, the chartreuse, Biovex, all chartreuse. Biovex, the Carolina rig can be good. And you can really, cabbage is pretty wide open. You can fish cabbage pretty easy.
Cranking, it's good.
Yeah. It's strong, so you can rip stuff off it too.
Okay, Cody asks, once you find the fish on your scan or sonar, how are you coming back to target the location where they are? On the side scan, you can move your cursor around, put waypoints right on them. My links or my graphs are linked, so I can put a waypoint in my back graph. It'll be on the front graph right where the fish are. Depending on the depth, if they're shallow, I'll cast them. If they're deep, I'll get right on top of them.
How do you find rock or hard bottom and thick milfoil? I mean, that's going to be tough. The thicker the milfoil, the harder. We showed you a couple images, not that thick, but you ain't going to find it.
Go out right when the ice comes off the lake. You'll see everything you want to see.
Yep. Or just pick up a flipping weight and start going to start getting bit.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it. Casey asked on the graph, do you notice the fish's position change with the position of the sun? Yes, I do. When I'm fishing boulders and stuff like that, I try to target the sunny side or the shady side if it's windy, or the shady side if it's sunny, or the windy side if it's cloudy.
Have you ever seen some large dark depressions on my side imaging, and I mark them with GPS, and when I go back over them with 2D sonar, it seems like I lose bottom contact like it's a hole. Do I think there's springs? I do think there's springs. Actually, I got a few of them in Tennessee that I'd fish, and a lot of times in the south, it's blazing hot in the summer, and those springs are bringing in cool water, so they're awesome spots to fish. And in a lot of cases, they are springs. Yep. Have you tried the side scan 3D? What are your thoughts? I talked about that a little bit. I love the 3D. I'll never run a boat without 3D now. The actual 3D functionality, I'm still kind of trying to zone that in. I've had some success with it, and then I've also wasted some time out with it. So I'm just I'm still learning, man. It's just time behind the graph to figure out when and where I'd want to use that functionality. What's the best way to pinpoint a single fish or two you may have marked on sides? Yeah, we just talked about that. Elsa's biscuits and gravy, son, making me hungry behind line. Oh, that's good. Yeah. Sorry, man. Can you tell if the fish noticed you? On sonar, you can, man. I was just talking about that. Sometimes they get boat, you can definitely tell. And then all of a sudden you go back and they're gone. And you look at your side imager and they'll be scattered off. I mean, if they're not dumb. I mean, they know. They try to stay alive. Sometimes they get over with the boat and they don't care. Other times they notice you and they're long gone. You can definitely tell.
I'm like halfway through this.
Just keep going.
Rob asked best idle speed for structure scan. The slower you go, the better detail you get. You can go up to like 8 miles an hour.
We talked about pallets. Yeah, we talked about that.
Seem to always have a big range. Christian asked, do bait fish like to move around the lake, or do they usually stay put? And if they are moving, are the bass constantly following them? The answer is yes. Okay, Cody asked, my problem is while scanning, if I find something, it's hard for me to fish exactly what I find. Tips. What I'll do when I see something on the side scan, I put a dot right on it. And then with hummingbirds, you can get the newer GPS puck, which will always give you a heading extension. If not, you got to be going like 0.6. So I'll get like a ways away from it, get my boat going directly at it. Like I said, I'll move my cursor on my map to see my distance. And, once I get within, a little over 100 feet of it, I'll just start firing casts straight at it until I eventually hit it.
Michael Riddell asked, your structure scan 3D looks way better than my traditional structure scan with Gen 2. Does the 3D have more power? Heck yeah, it does. A ton more. And it's worth it, man. That's an awesome buy. Is the shallow water weed clumps, or are you looking for fish in the weeds or outside the weeds? Yeah, again, when you're around weeds, man, it's so hard to find them. If you're grass fishing, you're looking for the grass. I mean, you can use a side imager to find the weeds, but at the same time, finding fish in the weeds is just not that simple of a task, and it's kind of a waste of time.
Yeah. Ethan asks, what depth is really too shallow for SI and down imaging? I'm not sure on down imaging, but side scan, you can run it in a foot of water.
Yeah, down imaging, I don't know that you'd want it in too shallow water, but definitely side imaging a foot to whatever you got. Well, since we got so many, how about we skip towards the bottom to get some of these fresher photos to answer for the last like 20.
Target. White perch are different than white bass. Word. Depends where you are. Perch are.
Whatever, you lose.
Okay, the next comment, white perch equal white bass. Down south, they call everything a perch. Up
That's
here,
New York.
we have names for them. Whatever, they're still not calling it by the proper name. Okay, we're gonna try to get down to the bottom.
Yeah,
of this. We got so many questions. Sorry, guys. If we
love answering them, man, but this one's kind of tough to kind of go back. We're a bit redundant.
If we miss your question, just email it to us.
Kyle Minky asked, do you guys face your hydrowave speaker up? Trolling motor shaft?
I face mine down just
Down,
because I can.
definitely,
If
yeah.
you run out of room, you can face it up and it'll still work.
Though sometimes if you're in like really thick, shallow grass, you need to move it up on top. Otherwise, it'll want to bind up and grab grass.
This is recorded. It will be on YouTube shortly.
Brian asked, what do you guys think is an underrated smallmouth bait that most people tend to ignore? The BioVex Paddis blade bait, bud.
Erie darter.
Catches them. Ooh, you went right to the darter. I like it. Clint asked, have you had fickle fish where you stop sonar to keep from spooking fish? Shallow,
yeah,
sure.
if I'm kind of cruising around fishing, I ain't worried about it. But if I got one hole and I'm sitting there for 8 hours and I know the structure pretty well and I know where I'm throwing, I know where the fish are sitting, I'll turn all that stuff off. But 9 times out of 10, I got it running all day.
Josh David says, on Hummingbird, do you use ice fishing jigging mode to improve seeing what you're fishing vertical? And then says Tonka represent. Right on. You guys ever mess with any of that?
I don't know what that means. I don't know if you're talking about the speed bar on the side. Yeah. I leave that on.
I think the ice fishing settings slow your ping speed down.
That's
too.
where it turns it into a flasher style. I don't use that.
Gene Vang says fish ID or no fish ID?
No
fish ID, man.
That's going to start marking everything.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to take 2 more questions and then we got to call it. We'll go through this again tomorrow and see if there's anything specific we can answer. Before we get to these 2 and everybody logs off, thank you guys. We are still sitting with almost 200 strong at this point in the webinar. That's awesome. We had 300 some log on today. Awesome, guys. Thank you. We really appreciate it. 2 questions, Feider.
Let's do the next 2. The last 2 that came in.
Last 2.
All right. Ridiculous. Oh, okay, those aren't questions.
Oh, yeah, we're getting thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. Seriously, you guys are awesome. You keep tuning in and we'll keep being here.
All right.
Right here.
Okay. When drop shotting 20 plus feet deep, what weight do you use to drop down without spooking your target fish? Smallmouth drop shot, and I'm using a half regardless.
You want to get it to the bottom, right? Yeah. Just get it down there and keep it down. You want to get to that
when
fish
you're
as quick.
Vertical.
And when you see them, you want that thing to drop and get down there and put it right in their face.
As soon as you see that fish on your sonar, he's right under the boat. So the longer it takes your bait to get down to him, you're constantly moving. You're on a water, you know what I mean? The longer it takes you to get there, the further away from you're going to be.
All right. Sean asks, last question. I've joined a bit late, so sorry if this was already discussed. Does muddy water affect clarity or sensitivity? Yes, it does. For sure, clarity. Sensitivity, I leave alone a lot, but clarity, it does. Minor, if you want to switch that up just a little bit. Always play with your clarity. Every time you're on the water, every day is a little bit different. Play with your clarity. It's super easy. Just adjust that thing. Guys, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Lyle.
Ton of questions. Thanks,
dude,
guys.
thank you. Featherwick, awesome. Guys, thank you so much. We'll see you guys in March. Please send us over any comments, any questions.
Yeah.
You got it.
If you didn't get your question emails, we'll hit it.
Heck yeah, tight lines, guys. See ya.
Right, hold on.
Stop.